Good morning. Welcome in. Beautiful day here in Middle Tennessee. Hope you're having a great start to your Thursday. We're going to see if we can't keep you entertained throughout the course of the next 3 hours. I do feel like this is a fairly entertaining show that we have prepared for people today. Lucas, I was just talking to Will about how they previewed Georgia-Tennessee for people this morning, and he went through a very thorough explanation of how Jim Nagy of the Senior Bowl helped scout the players who will be playing in Tennessee, Georgia this week. Andy Staples, of course, renowned college football expert for On3 Sports. And I said, well, we got Matt Murphy. We got Matt Murphy from WTN. Who's the guy on Twitter that accused me of being a liberal twerp? We'll bring in Matt Murphy and see if we can't balance some things out around here and have some fun as a diehard. Is he going to bark? You think he's going to come in the studio barking at us?
That is the first thing that came into my head as well.
This was entirely your idea. So do you plan to fight with Matt Murphy at 10:20 today? Because that is when our friend and colleague from down the hall will join us in studio.
Now, this will not be a political discussion. Matt Murphy, of course, of WTN, our sister station right next door, a news talk station, for those that may not know. But Matt Murphy is a diehard day one Georgia fan who can talk ball with anybody.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to getting Matt in here to talk about this game. And I know he's going to talk some smack, but I'm still trying to figure out what smack I'm supposed to talk back with because I don't have a whole lot right now.
Let's start with that, shall we? Because how realistic is the Vols' opportunity at Neyland Stadium hosting the number one team in the country this week? So, I mean, you know that Georgia's been on a bit of a roll, and this will be the third straight ranked opponent that the Bulldogs will face in Tennessee. Of course, having not dispatched, but Lucas.
Dispatched.
Having dispatched two other previous ranked opponents and probably getting ready to do so to Tennessee as well. Although they play the games for a reason, I suppose. As you look at the matchup, you start with just basic numbers. Georgia averaging 40.6 points per game. It is sixth in the country. Tennessee averaging 32, down substantially year over year. It is important to note, which places them at 36th. Defensively, Georgia is allowing an average of 15.6 points per game. Tennessee is 20.2. That is 30th in the country. So Tennessee playing good defense. Is it good enough to slow down a team that's scoring north of 40 per game and that has both the depth and top-end talent that kind of keep rolling over you in waves here?
Is this the best defense Georgia has faced so far?
That's a good question.
And that could be more of an indictment on Georgia's schedule than it is praising Tennessee's defense, which has been good this year. It wasn't last week.
Why both things can't be true? Like, it's Tennessee is a good 30th in the country, is a good defense.
Yeah, like Saturday was very surprising, right? The way they got kind of bullied up front by Missouri. Yeah. And that should be concerning when you consider that Georgia have established themselves as the bullies of college football over the last 2 years. But I think there's a case to be made that this is the best defensive unit Georgia's gone up against all year. And second best would be, I don't know. I have no idea. Missouri's? I mean, Georgia had a tough time against Missouri at home.
I need to go back and look at like the scoring totals and stuff like that.
Yeah, it probably
game,
would
but
be
it's
Missouri.
Probably Missouri.
Auburn, there's not a long list.
Courtesy of Sports Illustrated, or SI.com rather, Georgia averaging 35.7 points per game on the road this season, 486 yards of total offense. At home, Tennessee averages 39 points per game and is putting up 424 yards of total offense on average. So, I mean, it's not the furthest apart that a matchup could be between the number one team in the country and the number 18 team in the country, which is currently where Tennessee is slated after the latest college football playoff rankings. I know a great deal of people who are going to Neyland Stadium this weekend for the game, including Bert and Lucas, who are going to be doing boots-on-the-ground reporting. I expect there to be journalism done this weekend. I expect that the two of you are going to be in the press box and conducting yourselves professionally. Am I incorrect about this?
Well, I'll be broadcasting.
You're going to be drunk in the stands is what you're going to say. What you're going to be.
I will be broadcasting from the alumni tailgate on campus. Will Bowling and I both will. The Zone's promotions team will be out there. Justin Hawkins will be in the press box covering the game for Zone Socials. Will and I will be at the alumni tailgate doing call-ins throughout the course of the day leading up to the game. But as far as the game itself, no, I want Bert to get the whole Neyland experience. I'm very much
get it, or is Neyland getting the Bert experience?
Who's to say?
No, you're responsible.
None of us are bigger than Neyland Stadium. It was a mistake to think otherwise.
Largely agree so, but if you had to drop a problematic individual into the middle of that and test those boundaries, I think that Robert Lee Walsh would be a good test.
I'm looking forward to it. I think he's going to fit right in.
Oh, I absolutely agree. He's going to thrive. It's going to be great. I think people are realistic about what this weekend could look like. And the line right now, I haven't seen it move much. Lucas had it up on FanDuel.
It's 10.5
yesterday, 10.5. I guessed yesterday it would have been about 10. So can Tennessee cover? Are you feeling good about a cover, perhaps, if not an outright win?
There's a case to be made for Tennessee hanging around in this game.
So no is the answer to my question.
If I was putting money on this game,
Lucas,
I would lean towards Georgia covering.
Okay.
Yes. Georgia has not gotten off to the best starts this year. Georgia messed around at Auburn. It was a tight game. Ole Miss was finding a lot of things on offense in the first quarter before Georgia pulled away. So the question is, how long can Tennessee hang around? Can this be a one-possession game going into the fourth quarter? It's a tall task.
It's basically, do you expect Tennessee to be competitive? And here's the thing, and again, courtesy of SI.com, they had a bunch of good numbers on this game that were worth paying attention to. Something that jumped out to me from their stat comparison, do you know how many penalties UT is averaging at home this season? 9 penalties per game for an average of 78.2 yards lost.
Yeah, it's plagued them all year. Home or away.
Sure, but where the margin for error is so thin, and we could talk about this with any football team going up against an opponent that is probably talent-wise superior to you. And coming off of Tennessee's worst offensive performance of the Josh Heupel era, it does not inspire great confidence, I guess, is kind of where I'm at with this thing.
Yeah, this team is not equipped to overcome pre-snap penalties, getting them into 1st and 15, 2nd and 12, whatever it might be. Really, if you look at the penalty numbers from last year, it's not a world of difference.
Sure.
Last year, they were able to overcome those things. And this year, that's just not the case. They have to help themselves as much as possible. And it sacrificed the tempo, and it sacrificed efficiency in the run game as well. So they have to avoid the pre-snap penalties. And it seems like Tennessee's good for a personal foul penalty every week or every 2 weeks.
Well, the problem is it negates the home field advantage, because the biggest thing that you're leaning on is Neyland in an afternoon/nighttime environment, and the impact that it has on anybody that plays there. And if you're going to commit as many penalties as you do at home, basically as you do when you're on the road, then you take that from yourself.
Well, they've been able to overcome that at home for literally the last 2 years. They haven't lost at home since Georgia came to Neyland in 2021.
Sure, but we're talking about it. I guess Alabama is not that much different a caliber of opponent as this year's Georgia team is, but it does feel a bit different. Like even last year, there was the possibility that Alabama could go to Tennessee and lose. We were talking about that as a realistic possibility.
It's a top 6 matchup, absolutely.
Right. So I don't think we're looking at this game against Georgia exactly the same way. Is that fair to say? This is the best caliber of opponent that they have played at home since the last time they lost at home, which was to Georgia.
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. As long as we're on the same page. We'll see I don't know what Matt Murphy's going to do to Lucas. I'm curious to find out. We're bringing a Georgia fan in studio. He's decked out. He rolled in here in that giant, oversized, big old Georgia license plate truck early just to do the segment. I'm fired up. Our buddy Matt Murphy from WTN is going to join us in studio. Two people enter, one person may leave. I don't know how this is going to go for Lucas, but we'll find out coming up next. All right, we're going to try this. Now, it's already starting off more diplomatically than I thought, to be honest with you, because Matt Murphy is in studio. 99.7 WTN, noon to 3 is where you can hear him on our sister station just down the hall. He's a Georgia fan. It's Georgia week. He came in here spitting about that ugly-ass orange, but he didn't even bark at Lucas, and I'm a little disappointed. Hi, bud.
I've never been a fan of the barking.
That was my first question for you.
I'm a grown man.
You're an adult.
I'm a 50-year-old man. I feel a little odd about the barking, but I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be on a fancy show. I don't normally get to come on a fancy show. I'm on a fancy show today. It's nice.
A fancy show.
I wore my fancy Harley Davidson pullover.
You look great.
I feel good.
You look great. Listen, I'm the neutral arbiter in the middle of all this, and I'm sure that you have been in more contentious discussions as of late than the one that we are about to engage in here. But you've been yelling at me every time I walk down the hallway, just randomly spouting. It's like a bit of a verbal tick. Is that a slow enough start for you? Basically, is what Matt Murphy yells at me every time I walk down the hallway after a Georgia football weekend, where that has been the biggest criticism of the number one overall team in the country, of which you are a fan.
I guess I should consider it a compliment for the Georgia Bulldogs that all of the commentary on the zone, every sports commentator that I hear reflecting on the Georgia Bulldogs season, we're not winning by enough. We've only won almost 30 games in a row. We have 2 national championships under our belt after waiting for 40 years, for 4 decades, to see the next one after 1980. I mean, what do you want? I guess this is the way Bama has felt over the last 10 years, where if you're on the pinnacle, somebody's got to ding you in some form or fashion, and so we're not winning by enough.
He said, I guess this is the way Bama feels. Oh, the burden.
It's getting into that territory. Hard. You're too fat and happy.
I don't know. You know what? I think after
he's much
third,
less fat, by the way. Shout out PhD weight loss.
Yeah, no doubt. No question. Buck and I know.
Mm-hmm.
So after the third, I fear next year that we're going to get complacent. I do. I admit that, Lucas. After we dispatch the Volunteers.
After the third championship.
Yes, after we run roughshod through the rest of college football over the course of the postseason, I kind of fear that maybe next year will be the letdown season, but not this year. No question.
Yeah, it does seem like they are rounding into form. Them and Alabama just at the right time, and now that we know what the SEC championship game will look like officially, that's basically what Georgia fans, I guess, are looking at next. Not mighty Tennessee at Neyland Stadium at a 2:30 or for a 2:30 CBS afternoon kick. What is it like to do your show in enemy territory? Because you are from Georgia and you are here in Middle Tennessee doing your talk show. Do people bring that up a lot with you?
They do. It has been a wonderful, refreshing 2 years. And I'll tell you why. I was in Birmingham, Alabama for 20 years. And there is nothing more insufferable. The only thing more insufferable than winning Alabama fans is losing Alabama fans. I mean, it is the most, by far, insufferable fan base in the United States of America, in my opinion, because I was immersed in it for 20 years. And it was a 20-year span where they won I'm sure you know, they won quite a bit of football games. So this has been a nice welcome respite. Now, I came in when Tennessee, the Hypo train was coming back and everybody was excited. And this is the guy, number, 6? This is the guy that will, this is the one. This is the one.
You have the opportunity to respond. The floor is yours.
Interrupting the man.
Is there Hypo Doubt?
There's not Hypo Doubt in the long term because of what's coming down the pipe with Nico Iamaleava in place and a top 10 recruiting class that's formulating. But I always try to remind people, Matt, a top 10 recruiting class is not a top 3 or a top 1 recruiting class. So expectations are interesting for the Hypo era because Tennessee did not by any stretch have the most talented team, in the top 5, top 10 most talented teams in college football last year. They were still on the cusp of a college football playoff spot because of that offense and Hendon Hooker. So it does feel like this team can overcome some talent deficiencies if the offense is humming the way that it was a year ago. So no, I wouldn't say that there is any doubt creeping in the Hypo era. I think that would happen if we're sitting here a year from today looking down the barrel of 8-4, 7-5.
I think this season, and I'm by no means an expert, but I watch because I live in the state, right? I think this season demonstrates to me that more so than last season, that Heupel's a great football coach because he's adjusted. He recognizes he doesn't have Hendon Hooker as a I mean, Milton is not Hendon Hooker, and he knows that. And so now he's relying on the run game. He's relying on a better defense. His defense has gotten substantially better than last year. So these are the things that keep me up at night when I think about Saturday afternoon.
Oh, but do they actually keep you up at night?
Not after what? You know, look, I'm a Larry Munson era pessimist Bulldog fan, and anybody that remembers Munson back in the radio days, Munson was the most pessimistic homer that you've ever listened to in your life. He goes, we're up by 20, but there's 2 minutes on the clock. Anything can happen. I mean, he's just the most pessimistic guy. So I am too. Until I watched Ole Miss. If the team that we brought to the field against Ole Miss, I don't know of a team that we don't beat if we bring that team to the table. Now, I understand it's not at home. I understand Neyland Stadium is a factor. I'm going to Neyland for the first time in my life.
Are you?
Very excited about this.
Excellent.
I need some pointers, Lucas.
I got you.
What do's and don'ts? Like lay low. I figure before the game's fine, right? I mean, I've been in enemy territory. I mean, it's all good, right?
Sure.
Just know your place. Don't get all cocky and out of control, and you're fine.
Do you trust me to put you in a good spot and not lead you into a trap?
I do not, but I'll listen.
Matt Murphy of WTN is here in studio with us, noon to 3 on our sister station, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I do have a question because we can talk about this game and we can talk about matchups and where could Tennessee find an advantage, but there does feel to be a shadow of inevitability that hangs over it because of how good Georgia's been. So for you as a Georgia fan, what does concern you? Maybe not even about this matchup specifically, but what does concern you about what could be Georgia's downfall if they were to drop a game this year? What do you think that would be the cause of that?
It's odd because the part of our defense that I think is best is the part of the game that I think concerns me most. Here's what I mean. Kirby Smart hates the idea of a team running the football against him. Hates it with a passion. He will do everything in his power to stop the run game, and that leaves you exposed to the big pass. And you see it in Georgia's past over the last even several years that we can get burned, but it takes a quarterback who's on his game and a quarterback who knows what he's doing. I don't know that Milton's that guy. We'll find out. But what concerns me is that Tennessee hits the big plays because Georgia's so concerned about the Tennessee running game that they get a lead and then Georgia starts pressing. And then you make one mistake and get Neyland Stadium in it, and then all things can cascade the other way. That's what concerns me. Big plays early on in the game, and a slow start by Georgia.
And that, I think, is the thing that also concerns Tennessee fans because that has not been really smooth sailing for them to accomplish thus far this season. And you're right, Heupel has leaned more on the rushing attack. They are playing much better defense, especially up front. The recruiting has been really to that effect as well, more so than any other position, really, it seems like, or any other position group, really. It seems like, and you're seeing the dividends of that early on. What's the game that you have been most stressed about to date?
Auburn. I mean, I was at the game. I watched how sluggish we were in the first half. Jordan-Hare, I don't know if you guys have been. It is an incredible atmosphere, regardless of where Auburn is as a team. So just being that close, being a touchdown away from a loss in the second half, and having to rely on Brock Bowers the way that we did in the second half of that football game. So, yeah, Auburn concerned me. I thought we could have easily lost that football game.
The thing that at least as it felt like has helped kind of stay that Brock Bauer-less stretch that now it seems like on the other side of, the development of Carson Beck has been really cool to watch in real time as he's really not had one of these super down moments that you can talk about for a lot of the top quarterbacks. I'm not saying that he's the best or most talented quarterback in college football, and certainly Georgia has had a few of those that you would look at and say, well, is it really him or is it more about the talent around him? This is a player that has managed the situation very, very well, has been around for a while, and you can tell that he doesn't get panicked in these situations.
Doesn't get panicked, makes very few mistakes.
And I would argue, Matt, that Brock's absence maybe helped Beck in that regard.
No, I don't think it's in question.
Yeah, now he's back, and you're not just looking to funnel the offense through Brock Bowers because you were forced to play without him for a few weeks.
I would make the argument that that Carson Beck is one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the United States of America in college football. Yeah. And he gets no credit. I mean, he gets credit in some circles.
No.
But
Give me
not,
the full homer. Come on. Come on, Matt.
What? I mean, it's nobody talks about him as a Heisman candidate.
It's true.
Why are we not talking about him as a Heisman candidate? He only throws for over 300 yards a game. He's had five picks this year, and 3 of them were flukes, like, bouncing off of pads and that sort of thing. I mean, he puts the ball where it needs to be. He gets the score when he needs to get the score. He drove his team down the field against Auburn and got the victory 27-20. I don't understand why he's not getting more credit. But we'll wear that chip on our shoulders.
It is funny to see that there is more noise around J.J. McCarthy, for example, at Michigan and the Heisman than there is around Carson Beck, where, I mean, J.J. McCarthy was, 8 of 9 against Penn State this past week? And it said, you know, we're good. No passes in the second half. Just run the ball. Like, it is funny the way that the Heisman tends to develop that way just based on where people's attentions are at that.
Well, and to Lucas's
moment.
point, I loved it as a Georgia fan, that the obsession that the media had with Brock Bowers' absence. Because I was hoping that, Rosemy Jack Saint and, Ra Thomas and obviously Oscar Delp, who replaced Brock, and Carson Beck, most importantly, listen to every one of these comments. They think Brock Bowers is the only piece of the offense that matters to you. And, of course, for 2 weeks, Carson Beck proved them wrong. And, doesn't Brock Bowers make you wee-wee? Just a little? Just a little? He's going to be on the field. I mean, he's huge. I was at an event.
Yes, he is a giant, Matt. That is correct. He is a pterodactyl that they've taught to play football.
Did you see the quote? Like, Kirby claims, and I understand when head football coaches say these things at their press conferences, you take them with a grain of salt. But Kirby says that a couple of want-to-be agents called Brock and told him to shut it down for the season. And he said these people, 1, are never going to represent Brock Bowers. 2, they don't understand the human being that they're talking to. And 3, it just pissed him off.
Yeah.
I mean, it just made him mad. What are they talking about? I play football. I want to play football. So I love that attitude going into Neyland Saturday. I'm excited about it. I wish I could say I hesitate to say I'm not nervous. I have a difficult time. In anticipation of this interview, Lucas, I figured you'd go, is there anything you're worried about? Just that everything falls apart. I mean, and if things start falling apart, they cascade in a way that I don't know that Georgia's built to allow to happen.
His only concern, Lucas, is the unthinkable. Can we play the BVS? Can we play the BVS promo for Matt Murphy? Because we have a thing around here, Matt. I don't know that you've heard it. We call it battered Vols syndrome, and it's something that I've had to break the audience out of. It's something that I basically temperature check Lucas with every week on a regular basis just to kind of gauge where things are at right now. And the fact that you're coming in here as a Georgia Bulldogs fan with the number 1 team in the country saying, the only thing that I'm really worried about is literally a meteor hitting Neyland Stadium. And just on the one sideline where Georgia is sitting on that particular day, that's really the only thing that could possibly derail my football team right now.
Saying, I wish I could say I was nervous is confidence. That is confidence. But yes, this was the PSA created by Robert Walsh for BVS.
Do you suffer from flashbacks to a blocked field goal in 2009? Or wake up in a cold sweat thinking about a 2015 Oklahoma game? If this is describing you, you might suffer from battered Vols syndrome. Millions of people worldwide are affected by BVS. Symptoms include anticipating the worst-case scenario in every situation, shortness of breath in the fourth quarter, or nightmares about the Florida Gators. Let's hear from one former Vols season ticket holder who was affected by BVS so dramatically they had to change their collegiate fandom. Their voice has been altered to protect their identity.
I don't even know how this happened, man. We were doing so good with Peyton, and now every time I walk into Cracker Barrel and see them kids playing on them checkerboards, I just don't know what to do. I swear, man, I'll be watching football sometimes and they'll have a 12-man on the field penalty and wham! I'm right back there and North Carolina's about to kick that field goal to take a lead and win in overtime and I just can't take it. I root for the Hilltoppers just so I can have some sanity on football Saturday.
Tragic. Absolutely tragic. If you or a loved one suffers from BVS, do something today. For more information, call 615-737-1045. And remember, go Vols.
So that's what I'm dealing with.
I mean, but that's not you guys anymore, right? You won 10 last year. You beat Bama.
Yeah, it creeps back up.
Did you just not see what happened to them at Missouri?
That's true.
Did you have a period in your life of of BGS, battered Georgia fan syndrome, where you're close, you're right there, and you're right there, and you're right there, and you're right there, and there's just that big hump that you guys couldn't get over for so many years.
One of the reasons that I'm so comfortable speaking in the way that I am to so many Tennessee Volunteer fans is I've been there, and I feel your pain. Mark Richt was a 10-win machine.
Yeah.
If I have to hear one more time, and I've said it plenty of times on my own show, if I have to hear one more time what a good man Mark Richt is, I'm going to throw up. I win football games. I said, there was one season where Mark Richt and I think Charlie Weiss, Tommy Tuberville was coaching Auburn, and they all went overseas to visit the troops. And I got into trouble saying this because I said, you think Nick Saban's visiting the troops? No, Nick Saban's studying film. Let's get in the film room, Rick. So, point being is I've been there. And Mark Richt had these.
I just imagine some panicked program director screaming down.
They were like engaged in a flag football game with America's finest, who are over there protecting our liberties and freedoms.
That's right.
And Murphy's complaining that he's not breaking down film in July. But it's true. Just win football. Nobody cares if Nick Saban's a good guy. Not really.
No.
They just want to win football games. So Mark Richt had an inexplicable loss. You guys remember when he lost to Vanderbilt? Just out of nowhere.
Yes.
He just walks in and hey, we're going to lose to Vanderbilt today. Every year there was one of those inexplicable losses. And so it took a long time. We're still recovering from that sort of thing. So I feel you, Tennessee Volunteer fans, but I feel like Tennessee, and I can say this now that there won't be divisions and everything will be shaken up by next year because Saturday's a foregone conclusion. But I can say this. That I think Tennessee's a comer in the SEC. I mean, I think they will be in the upper echelon in the SEC in the next couple of years, as long as he gets the quarterback that he needs.
Do you know how many people have walked in this studio and basically patted him on the head and said that exact same thing? Not yet, but Tennessee's getting there. Tennessee's getting there, little guy.
2024.
Are you sick of it yet? I'm looking for some kind of fight out of Lucas because Matt Murphy is just kicking this man right in the ribs over and over and over again.
I'm just desperate not to piss off every Tennessee fan in the listening audience by saying, hey, guys, it's coming.
No,
we were there.
The problem is if you're paying attention to the live stream chat in front of you, the majority of them agree with you.
Well, I will say this. I'm on the Buck Rising show on 104.5 The Zone because of Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. Thank you to Kirby. I mean, I reflect. I talked to my buddy.
Honor.
You know how you do with your friends, right? You're talking and you're doing the intricacies and the ins and outs, and we have a certain level of PTSD when it comes to the Mark Richt era. And I'm like, guys, can we not enjoy the greatest moments in Georgia football history before we start worrying about when the loss is coming? I mean, we all know a loss is coming down the road. Can we just enjoy this for right now? Can we enjoy the fact that we're going to be the only team in the modern era? When you do anything, Georgia football is about to do something that has not happened since black and white. If you do anything that hasn't happened since black and white, you're accomplishing something. And we're about to do it. I sincerely believe they're going to win a national championship, and they'll be the first of three-peat.
Where are you sitting on Saturday?
Section O? Where's that?
Oh, we might be in the same section.
Section O? If you got your tickets from where I got my tickets, we're probably in the same section.
That's exactly what I was just getting
We're
at.
in the same place. I'll see you on Saturday.
You know what? There's just no better way to sum up radio than that. Matt Murphy, WTN, the Matt Murphy Show, noon to 3 around these parts, just down the hall from us at our sister station at 99.7 WTN, in here talking some SEC football with us. So Alabama, just not to make Saturday a foregone conclusion, but Alabama is who Georgia will face in the SEC championship game. What do you make of the way that Nick Saban is now rounding into form?
I mean, Nick Saban is the greatest to ever do it, in my opinion. And I think those that were counting him out toward the beginning of the season don't understand what kind of coach he is. Although, every season comes to an end, and I get that. Some folks were predicting that. I think they're the most dangerous team in the SEC outside of the Georgia Bulldogs, and they scare me. I mean, Nick Saban scares you. I mean, sure. I mean, he's the master. Luke's got to go up against the Emperor now in the final battle, and expect that Darth Vader will somehow save him, if I can complete the Star Wars analogy. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm not nearly as cocksure about the results as I'm perhaps presenting with regard to the national championship. The only reason is the SEC championship. I think either Georgia or Alabama, if they get into that game, whoever comes out of that game, I feel confident will take care of business in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just a funny dynamic that you bring up with sports fans, and whether it's Tennessee, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Titans, whatever the fan base might be, that's like preying on their next loss instead of enjoying a win in real time. I feel like you work through enough human psychology from noon to 3 on WTN on a regular basis. What is it about sports fans that almost pre-wire us that way?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. That we lean toward our pessimistic side. We lean toward
every time Indiana basketball is on the screen, I think they're going to lose.
Here's why. Because at the end of any season, there's only one fan base that feels good, right? So every other fan base in America of the NFL or the NHL or college football has a reason to complain and a reason to ask, what if this, what if that? So I think it's natural to feel like if there's only one that will come out of this the winner, if there's only one Highlander, then, at some point we're going to taste that failure. For Georgia fans, you feel like, this has to come to an end at some point. My take is I'm going to enjoy where we are now, and we'll worry about where we go after the loss then. But I'm going to enjoy this now.
Good. I hope you enjoy.
Glory, glory to Georgia. I'll give you that. Give you that.
There it is.
That,
It's so
never
weird, man.
I've never liked the bird.
It's so weird.
I love you, Matt, but if you bark at somebody in Section O and somebody springs on you, I will not be defending you in Neyland Stadium. I need you to know that.
Contrary to my public persona on the radio, where I'm behind glass and I've got locked doors between me and enraged fans or listeners, I know how to act. I've been in enough opposing. People think that I'm going to be all rowdy.
You know what you're doing.
No, I'm not getting it. The last thing a 50-year-old grown man's going to do is get into a fight in Section O in Neyland Stadium over a football game. That's not happening.
The one thing that I can assure you is that one of your traveling party, I don't know if you've met Robert Walsh yet or not, but he will be trying to incite a fight in Section O at Neyland Stadium. So,
is this Bert?
This is Bert.
Bert's going to be there?
Good luck.
Man. Need to make some different plans.
Enjoy Neyland Stadium. It's great to have you on. This was a lot of fun for us to do, and we appreciate you coming on a fancy show every once in a while.
I wish your football team luck this weekend, unless your football team is the Tennessee Volunteers, in which case, go Dogs.
Matt Murphy, noon to 3, 99.7 WTN. Coming up next, the Heisman Watch. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Apparently. Not Matt Murphy of WTN. That was a lot of fun. We appreciate Matt coming in and clowning around with us. Noon to 3 over there at 99.7. But not that particular devil. This devil is going to, not down to Georgia even, over to Neyland Stadium, East Tennessee. Robert Walsh, Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 6 to 10 a.m., has apparently made his return to our ranks. Welcome to the fancy show, apparently, is what Matt Murphy is calling us. Do you take offense to that we get to be the fancy ones?
No, I don't have any problem with that. I think it's hard to be fancy before 10 o'clock. You know what I mean? We're kind of just like in our pantsies, not even fancy.
It's fair. I feel like you should be able to wear whatever you want to work if you have to wake up. If you have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to get to your job at the time that it starts at 6 a.m.
Now imagine having to wake up to be on television at that time.
I don't know
where
how.
You can't wear whatever you want.
I don't know how local news people do it. Anyway, Bert and Lucas are going to Neyland Stadium this weekend. Apparently, everybody got tickets from the station, and they're all sitting in section O. So if you want to go harass them, go get them.
I'm working. Bert's just my plus one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm his radio wife. I've taken your spot.
Well, listen, he's been trying to divorce me for years. He's the only reason he's hanging on is because I wasn't smart enough to sign a prenup.
You're the mistress. We've established this.
So what is this going to look like? What are you excited for? What are your expectations? Because the first time that I went, you have been to major college football games before, though. Yes, Robert?
Correct, but most of them have been in the ACC. I've been to Clemson. I've been to UNC. I've been to Virginia Tech. I've been to a lot of big ACC stadiums, but this is my first SEC experience.
Ooh.
It's real because broke coming out of college, I was doing Vandy, PA, and that was like my exposure to SEC football games, which is one fan base, floods the Vanderbilt Stadium, First Bank Stadium, yes. First Bank Stadium, and then, maybe a couple Vandy fans show up and the home team loses by 50. That was my SEC experience until I went to Neyland last year for the Florida game. And it was like, borderline religious experience that I got the opportunity to witness. I don't imagine that you're going to have the same experience because this was a game that Tennessee won.
Well, you don't know that. One, I'm a great fan for all that's worth. I know a lot of people might be like, he ain't no Vol. Bird ain't a Vol. He don't know a Vol from my overall. But I will after this weekend. Let me give you my credentials. One, I never sit down in these games. I will stand up and give the team my energy, spirit bomb style. Give me your energy. I'll be passing it to the offense. I'll be very loud on defense. I'll be hollering the whole time. I'll be hoarse when I come in here on Monday. I have a lot of experience in watching bad football teams. I'm an East Carolina fan, so I can understand and find positivity in the smallest things. Mostly, I'm just excited to experience with Lucas. Lucas and Bert Go to Neyland sounds like an old Ernest movie, like Ernest Scared Straight. This is my Ernest movie.
I want a camera on you the entire time, but I also think that will get you fired.
Yeah, it might criminalize me just a tad. Maybe the camera could be blur our identity.
No. You misunderstand because not everything is about you. I want the camera on Lucas.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's fine too.
This seems like a lot of effort.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, not because I want people to see this. Bert, you and I have watched Tennessee games with Lucas before. It's like a different human being.
Oh, entirely different, especially so because Lucas would never hurt a fly. Lucas is one of the most nice, positive people I've ever met.
Unless that fly happens to be playing quarterback for Virginia in the background as he screams, "Murder!
Kill him! Kill him!" It's like, I wasn't aware of your game, Lucas. Let me take a step back here.
No comment.
I want the camera on Lucas. Bert, I've seen the Bert thing before, all right? He's gonna have one too many twisted tees. He's gonna be out there in the stands in section O. He's gonna get a sunburn when the sun's not out, and he's gonna light up a cigarette in the middle of the stands and get kicked out.
Can you do that? Oh, you can't smoke in the stadium.
I'm familiar.
They're smoking cigars in there all the time. Why can I not smoke a cig? I feel like that's tobacco racist.
No, it's not.
It's the same thing.
It's not all the time at all. In fact, it's not them smoking cigars in their own stadium, as a matter of fact.
They smoke cigars after big wins. I think they should smoke a cig after big losses. Like, it's just a depression cig. You know what I mean?
That actually is kind of appropriate.
Well, this is why they're taking you, because somebody's going to need to be there to pass around the depression cigs.
It's
I've got a
perfect.
whole
He's going to
pack.
fit right in. I'm telling you. Like, have you found your Vols gear yet?
Okay, so I went thrifting yesterday, did not find any good Vols gear that I loved. I've been given a couple establishments that I should visit to find some Vols gear. What I was looking for this is what I'm going for. I want Smokey, like a big graphic tee, right, where it's like the mascots. I want Smokey sitting on a Georgia Bulldog smoking a cigar while the Bulldog has like cartoon X's over his eyes.
This is how I can tell he's been looking at too many of these AI pictures that are being designed out there. You can't just will that into existence the way that the computer programs are doing right now.
Okay.
You have to plan these things.
Well, let me say this. When the Vols win this weekend, I need somebody to get on it, and I want Smokey smoking the gar on the back of whatever Brutus the Bulldog beefcake, whatever the hell his name is.
The ugliest mascot in sports.
Uggo, the ugliest mascot in sports.
It's not a waffle.
That's a Eggo. You're the Uggo. When the Vols win, I need that T-shirt made, and I'll go to sleep in it every night.
Thank you for your service.
Vols by 50!
See you in Neyland.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get into the Heisman Watch coming up next.
It is 10:59. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The first Titans injury report of the week came out on Wednesday. Both Treylon Burks and Andre Dillard not practicing, still in concussion protocol. Daniel Brunskill, Anthony Kendall, and Sean Murphy Bunting were limited. Titans made a transaction on Wednesday to claim offensive lineman Calvin Throckmorton off waivers from the Panthers. Also placed linebacker Chance Campbell on injured reserve as the Titans at 3-6 prepare to head to Jacksonville to face the AFC South leading Jaguars. Titans still in pursuit of their first road win of the season. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second down on this Thursday. Welcome in, welcome back. Thanks for hanging out with us. We got a lot to do in the second hour. Roger McCreary is going to be here, Titans corner. Got an interception on Sunday against the Bucs. Going to help the Titans try and get a road win in Jacksonville this coming weekend as well. I sent a text last night out of desperation. I was sitting around trying to think before the primetime show, before me and Bert started scheming about how the hell we're going to talk about this football team. I said, who can I get to get the audience up for Jags Week? This has been a consistent tradition. And as I said, this is the first really losing football season that Lucas and I have covered since we've had the radio show. So we're trying to figure this thing out. How do we get some life, get a pulse out to the audience in a game where the Titans are heading on the road? They haven't won on the road. It's a division opponent, but they've done so well against the Jags in recent history. How can you not get yourself up for this game? So I said, I don't know if I'm capable of doing this for the audience the way that it needs to be done. I texted Wesley Woodyard. Wood is going to come in studio. Apparently, he's landing at BNA right about now. He's going to come straight down here, and he's going to get you hype for the Titans and the Jags in Jacksonville on Sunday afternoon. Looking forward to catching up with the Lumberjack here in just a little bit. 615-737-1045 is the number. The F&M Bank chat also at your disposal. While you interact there, let's go ahead and do the Heisman Watch, Lucas. What's the latest as we head into Week 12? Well, last week of the regular season in college. Well, 2 weeks left in the
2 more weeks
regular season before rivalry week begins.
We have a new favorite. Bo Nix has surpassed Michael Penix per FanDuel Sportsbook as the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Bo Nix at -110. Michael Penix falls to +370. This coming on the heels of Nix's phenomenal performance against USC, 23 of 31, 412 yards, and 4 touchdowns in the game. As Michael Penix still took care of business with Washington, they were able to outscore Utah 11-0 in the second half to win 35-28. Penix in that game, 24 of 42, a little less efficient, 332 yards, a pair of touchdowns, plus a rushing score. But Bo Nix, per FanDuel, is officially the new favorite.
Does that surprise you at all?
Not necessarily. I don't think the movement right now means a ton because you're going to have those two face off in the Pac-12 championship game. And I don't know that Bo Nix gets the Heisman if Oregon goes 0-2 against Michael Penix in Washington.
Does it matter at all how Penix looks in that game?
Oh, sure. Absolutely it does. It always will. But that's the type of game where the team that comes out on top will probably be the team with the better quarterback play, in my mind. I have a new favorite, personally. I think it should be Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels is officially my personal Heisman favorite. He is rising on the boards. He's actually even with Michael Penix, tied for the second favorite per FanDuel Sportsbook at +370, and rightfully so. We talked about his monster performance against Florida yesterday. The performance was on Saturday. First player in FBS history to throw for 350 and rush for 200 in a game. Jayden Daniels, third in the country in passing yards. He is completing 71% of his passes. That's better than Michael Penix, not better than Bo Nix, who's completing a ridiculous 77.7% of his passes this year. Jaden Daniels leads the country in passing touchdowns, 30 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions, and Jaden Daniels is by far the best rusher out of this group. He leads LSU in rushing this season. He's one of the lead rushers in the SEC as a whole. Obviously, Saturday, rushing for over 200 yards. We'll pad those stats a bit, but that's what the Heisman is about. The discussion around Jaden Daniels' chances to win the Heisman have been, is LSU a good enough football team? And the answer is yes. We've seen Heisman winners before. Lamar Jackson out of Louisville, RG3 out of Baylor, come out of 9-3, 8-4 type of teams with phenomenal seasons individually. That's what's happening with Jaden Daniels and LSU. So as of right now, Jaden Daniels should be the favorite in my mind to win the Heisman. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. at plus 600. And then Matt Murphy mentioned Carson Beck. He is technically the 5th favorite, but it is a big drop-off at plus 3,500.
Who has the best Heisman moment of the season thus far? Because I would argue that is Jaden Daniels, accounting for, 606 total yards of offense individually, 5 touchdowns. He's the first quarterback in the history of FBS football to have at least 350 passing yards and 200 rushing yards in a game. Now,
Tom Pelissero is reporting that multiple players have been suspended due to gambling.
I have an excuse, though.
What's your excuse?
Puff just texted me and said they had a schedule change at St. Thomas Sports Park, so McCreary will now be 12:15 as opposed to 11:15. Yours is that you just don't listen to me.
I have excuses, too.
It's lowly Florida, though. Like, is even though it's an FBS record, Florida's a terrible football team. So with that as the context, has another one of these guys, Nix or Penix, have they had a better Heisman moment against a better quality opponent than Jaden Daniels has against Florida? Because, I mean, I know these things could change in 2 more weeks of college football, or college football regular season anyway. But I guess that's kind of the way that I judge these things, because it feels like that's just how short our attention spans are with this stuff.
Yeah, it could still be yet to come in the Pac-12 championship game. I think we put a little too much stock in the idea of a Heisman moment, because when you think about the last couple Heisman winners, like Caleb Williams last year, can we look back at a particular moment? Was there a particular performance? I mean, USC was, a 3-loss team last year in totality, as they lost the Cotton Bowl as well to Tulane. I don't know that there was a singular moment that won Caleb Williams the Heisman. He just kind of ended up with pretty much the best numbers. Same goes for Bryce Young 2 years ago. When we think Heisman moment, what comes to your mind when you think about a Heisman moment? Like, what's the player, what's the image that flashes?
Well, that's a good question.
For me, it is Jameis Winston spinning out of a tackle in the backfield against Maryland or something, playing for Florida State and rolling right. Somehow he stayed on his feet and throws a dart to the end zone. Like a specific play, or Cam Newton just bouncing off of tacklers against LSU like they're pinballs on a long touchdown run for Auburn. So, yeah, Heisman moments are a real thing, but I do think we put a little too much stock into those. Now, there can be singular performances that suddenly put a player on the map where you say, okay, that guy's got to go to New York. That's what that was for me with Jaden Daniels and what he did against Florida. Tyler in the F&M Bank chat, Johnny Manziel against Bama. The perfect encapsulation of a Heisman moment where he stumbles into a blocker, fumbles the football a bit, turns around, and finds, who was the wide receiver? Ryan Swope, I think, in the middle of the end zone for a touchdown as A&M knocks off number 1 Alabama in Tuscaloosa. But I don't think that is totally necessary for a guy to win the Heisman. Devontae Smith didn't have a singular moment. He just had one of the most dominant seasons of all time by a wide receiver.
I guess it's just how much credence do you put into like those individual moments, and how much, because how many Heisman voters are there? How many people have a Heisman vote?
Way too many.
Okay. So the only reason that I bring it up is just because, like, I feel like those moments, with the viral nature of the internet and how many people are voting on the Heisman, I do think that has some kind of impact. I'm not disputing that it's overrated, the impact. I'm just kind of curious to know what the actual impact of a viral moment in today's college football consuming atmosphere, how much weight that actually has. I don't have the answer to that. I'm just curious.
No, that's fair. Like, you wonder if Hendon Hooker had stayed healthy, and let's say in a hypothetical world, Tennessee is able to beat South Carolina and Hendon Hooker stays healthy, plays the rest of the season, how much does that win against Alabama? Because what Hendon Hooker and Tennessee did against Alabama certainly was a bigger story in college football than any single game USC had, right? The story of USC last year was how disappointing they were. They get to the Pac-12 championship and lose. Their defense letting them down. So sure, I think that's fair because of just the totality, how many Heisman voters there are. That's often a criticism of the Heisman Trophy. You know, we can say Brock Bowers, if he had been healthy all year, should be a Heisman contender, but that'd be giving too much credit to Heisman Trophy voters with the idea of giving the trophy to actually the best player in college football. No, they're just going to give it to the most impactful quarterback typically as far as statistics are concerned. And right now, I think that's Jaden Daniels.
Don Davenport just texted us and said 870 media members have Heisman votes. Are they actually media members? Like, I don't want to do the thing where I look at somebody and say, well, that's not really a member of the media. I don't want to, that sounds super elitist and snobby. But like 870? Are there 870 people covering Power 5 Division I college football? Are there that many?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
So just everybody.
Who is it?
It's an email. That's not the same thing.
Yes, it is. Why would it be any different?
Why is it just, it's always perfect timing to where
Silence.
we're not talking.
Read the email.
I don't understand why it's so hard for me to turn the damn.
Read it.
I'm trying to get to the damn email, all right? Relax for a second. It's from the NFL Communications, okay? The NFL announces crowdsourced challenge to further improve safety and consistency of playing surfaces. Oh, this might actually be a topic. The NFL today announced that the Health Tech Challenge, a crowdsourced challenge to accelerate innovations that can help make playing surfaces more consistent and safer for players, held in partnership with Football Research and Duke Biomedical Engineering. The challenge invites submissions that address several possible elements of natural and synthetic playing surfaces and their safety. Okay. I can give you more information about that later, I suppose. I'm not playing this game with emails, though.
Yes, you are. Like, it applies to both of us. If you hear a sound, it doesn't matter. Email, text,
how did you know it was
call.
mine? That could have easily been yours.
No, I could tell.
Greg Cosell is going to explain to you what he's seeing from Will Levis through his first career 3 starts, and Wesley Woodyard will join us in studio coming up next. Welcome back to the show. So a little bit of shuffling of parts around here. Titans had a schedule change with their practice today. So Roger McCreary will join us at 12:15 instead of right now. Looking forward to having Wesley Woodyard join us whenever he gets on the ground from, I assume he's traveling from where he lives in Florida. I don't know where Wes is traveling to Nashville from today, but we're looking forward to seeing him. It's been a while.
I need Lexington recommendations. That's where I'll be spending my Thanksgiving.
Remind me again?
Megan, my girlfriend, is doing her rotation at University of Kentucky Medical Center for the next few months. So I'll be up in Lexington. Both our parents are out of the country, so I'll be up there. I need him to give me the best spots in Lexington, Kentucky.
It's a good question, because when was Wes on campus? I imagine Lexington, Kentucky looks a bit different since the last time since Wesley Woodyard was frequenting haunts. I don't know how often he goes back to watch the Tackle Cats at Mighty Kroger Field, where heads are cracked and so are eggs.
When did Wesley leave? I think he was, because I want to say he might have been on that 2011 Tennessee or Kentucky team that beat Tennessee for the first time in 27 years. Was he playing with Danny Trevathan, who went on to have a great NFL career?
No, I think he's probably.
He went undrafted in 2008 and joined the Broncos in 2008.
I was going to say, not to age the guy, but he's been around for a little while. So anyway, we'll get into Jags Week with Wood whenever we get a chance to catch up with him. Meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out the most diplomatic way to put this, Lucas, because I told you yesterday before I left the radio studio off the air, I don't know what I'm going to talk to Cosell about, because they're struggling to implement their offense with the way that the offensive line is currently unable or not allowing them to go through the scope of actually executing plays. So there's some stuff there for Greg to break down on an X's and O's level, but a lot of it is just kind of a wash, which is a problem in and of itself. But we found ways to talk about the Titans, and specifically the Titans quarterback, on the latest episode of The Install, rather than just giving you what could have amounted to a Jags preview, because, right now the Titans have obvious limitations. But what is not limiting them is their quarterback. The quarterback has been a plus so far. And when I asked Cosell, all right, Greg, basically the way that we're going to do this, if the Titans continue to stink this way and they can't get their offense off the ground, we're just going to do like a "How's Levis doing this week" segment. And so I asked him, after Levis's third career start, after officially being named the Titans starter in Tampa, how is Levis looking this week?
I think the first offensive coach I ever got the opportunity to talk to years and years and years ago, probably when I was a young man, Buck, was, he told me that you have no pass game if you can't protect.
Right.
It's a very simple but true point. And we saw what happened this past week with Levis. Boy, did he get hit a lot.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's funny. With each game, obviously the statistics have been less, but I would say with each game, sort of my admiration for him has gone up as a potential quality NFL quarterback. Because, look, that first game when he threw the 4 touchdowns, what did we say after that first game? I said, that's not going to happen every week, so don't expect that. And then the second game where he really hung in there and stood in there and made some throws. And then this week where there were just too many plays where he had no chance.
Right. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast right now. And basically, Greg, and you and I talked about this before we started recording, basically this is what we're going to do for the rest of the season, depending on how competitive the Titans end up, is looking at Will Levis and how he manages these situations week in and week out, because that's now what their season basically becomes.
And the second point, and of course that was the case this week, is a total inability to run the football. And if they can't do that at all, then it's really, really hard. I mean, again, no one's expecting Derrick Henry to go 25 for 150 every week. We're past that point. That's not going to happen. But what were the final numbers? I know at one point he was 11 for 25. Was that final?
Yeah, he ended up averaging 2.3 yards per carry.
Yeah, I mean, then it's just really too hard. And what happens is then you need players, and I hate to be cliched, but it is true. Then you need players to make plays. Like, for instance, the first play of the third quarter, when they come out with a shot play and he throws to Westbrook-Ikhine, which was a beautiful ball. he's got to catch that ball. I mean, I'm not saying it's a routine easy catch. Okay, I don't want people to think, oh, what are you saying? But he's got to lay out and catch that ball. I mean, that in those kinds of games with the situation they're in, those plays have to be made.
I gave Derek an extra 0.1 on his average rush per attempt. It was 2.2, not 2.3.
How many drops were there on Sunday?
I
think Chig had 2.
I wonder if I can find that on Pro Football Focus. I probably can.
1 in the end zone. Nick Westbrook-Akine definitely had 1, and that's not even including what I think Greg was referencing there on the deep ball.
Yeah. Wiley, I think you could make an argument. One of them was dropped. There were 2 defenders that were screaming at him at the same time, so I didn't really see if a defender got a hand in there or not. It looked like a drop from the press box, but I don't know for sure.
And Chig had 1 catch in the red zone that, I mean, he had trouble securing it. Do you remember what I'm talking about, where the ball kind of bobbles and he has to double clutch it on the way down?
It was almost an interception.
It's been interesting how the way drops have plagued, especially Chig this year.
So where do you think Chig ranks? I don't have drops per game, but I have like the NFL's individual leaders in drops. Where do you think Chig ranks among drops this season?
In the NFL?
Yes. Let's say
give me some context. How many out of how many?
Let's say out of 20 players. Where do you think 20 players that are listed in front? I mean, it's more than 20, but let's say out of 20 players, where do you think Chig ranks?
18th?
He's tied for second.
Okay, second most drops.
Yes.
I was saying 18th as in like putting the people with the most drops at the bottom.
Okay, got it. No, he's tied for second in the NFL with the most amount of drops. Now, I mean, some of these names on here, you're going to look around and say, oh, I didn't realize that guy had that many drops. Like Tyreek Hill also has 4 drops on the season. Chig is currently credited through 9 games with 4 drops.
Tyreek Hill also still leads the league in receiving? Or
That's
is
right.
it? Yeah.
So, context important on the drop passes because Stephon Diggs has 4 drops. Tyreek Hill has 4 drops. Chig Okonkwo has 4 drops. Those drops are substantially more important for Chig than they are for Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs.
Joseph has texted me. He said Vrabel mentioned in a presser this week that the Titans had 5 drops on Sunday. So that's what the coaching staff counted.
Okay.
Just on Sunday.
You have to be perfect. And they're not. That's what the takeaway is. Now, that Levis is, because I'm not just going to do 3 hours a day of your football team sucks radio. And we could do that because they do right now. They do stink very, very badly. But it's not a productive exercise, and I don't think that's good for anybody. It's not going to keep us engaged. It's not going to keep you engaged. So we're going to find different ways to talk about this stuff. The fact that Greg said it best, his admiration for Levis has grown through these 3 starts because Levis is proving that he can handle this situation. Now, the results of a win versus a loss have not been there outside of the Atlanta game, and the Atlanta game is when there's no NFL tape on Will Levis whatsoever other than 30 snaps in a Chicago preseason game. That was all the preseason action that he got. So he came out there. Atlanta got by the Will Levis debut, and since then he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. Though that's not insignificant. It's worth talking about, but also he continues to manage the situation. And that's all that you can ask right now. Herndon brought up yesterday, Mike Herndon, who, if you were listening to the radio show in the second hour, Mike said that the idea that this offensive line group is going to ruin Will Levis if they keep getting him hit at that rate is overrated. I think it's premature. I don't think it's an overrated notion.
I feel like Herndon dismissed it too quickly.
I am not willing to dismiss the fact that it is far easier to derail a quarterback's career with the amount of hits that this one in particular is taking. Whether he is equipped or not to handle that, this is how we find out, I suppose.
Well, it's not even just about the hits. At what point does it affect what you're seeing? Remember when Sam Darnold was mic'd up on the sideline on Monday Night Football? I'm seeing ghosts.
But was that because Darnold was getting hit or because the offense wasn't like that? That's a different kind of situation. I don't know. It's because Darnold was taking a bunch of hits. I don't remember that Jets offensive line group being like overwhelmingly wretched. I know that Adam Gase and his offense was not necessarily allowing a rookie quarterback easy answers and that he was getting got a lot of these times. So there's a lot of different things. There's no perfect situation that a rookie quarterback's going to be dropped into. Let's start there. Will Levis is in a bad situation. It's still a better situation than a lot of dudes. You could argue that C.J. Stroud got dropped into a worse spot, although now it seems like the Texans are a better roster than we might have imagined, and that the Titans are a worse roster. Maybe that's a bad comparison. Were the Colts a worse landing spot than the Titans when Anthony Richardson got drafted there?
As a whole, or are we talking about the offensive line?
I'm talking about as a situation for a rookie quarterback. The worst teams draft at the top and get the best quarterbacks.
I would have said yes. But I didn't know just the depth of the struggles that this offensive line was going to face.
Okay.
Stroud, obviously the Texans have kind of bottomed out the last couple of years, but we knew going into the season the Texans had more on the offensive line than the Titans. I mean, Laramie Tunsil alone.
Titus Howard is not regarded as a great player, but he's a competent starting offensive lineman.
Kenyon Green, there are players, and we knew that they had players on that offensive line coming into the year.
It's kind of like the Jags. Like the Texans have been bad long enough to accumulate enough talent here that a good and what appears to be the best quarterback among them being dropped into that situation was going to unlock the best version of a lot of what was already there. And in addition, they had a ton of draft picks, and they spread them all over the place this year. So Houston's jump start is not really a jump start. It's the product of being bad over years and getting the quarterback right. The Titans situation is different. The Titans situation is the product of being bad at drafting for several years and, the snowball or the boulder, whatever's rolling downhill at this point, has become so great that it's impossible to overcome. In almost every situation. Not impossible, I guess I should say, because they have won 3 games. But it's a hell of a lot harder to move than what it is that the Texans and I guess the Colts have been up against. So for Levis, this is as important a time as any. And I think that their task, we've talked about this before, but their task is now finding different ways to protect him or finding as many different ways as humanly possible to protect him. I don't know how many different ways they can come up with, basically. And some of it just comes down to dudes need to play better. And if they don't, this is going to be the result. That they haven't is concerning. And it's why you're in the situation that you are. But reading that stat yesterday that Kaharski tweeted out that they were averaging 17.5 points per game at the end of last season, and now they're averaging 17.1. It's tough. I mean, you cannot say that the Tennessee Titans this year are a better offense than they were last year. Could you? Could you make that argument? There are things that feel different. There are things that I think excite you about what this might look like if they get any help at all from an offensive line group that I guess you're just relying upon in the future at this point. There are things that I like that Tim Kelly is doing, but if the results aren't there, can I say that they're a better offense?
If you look at Pro Football Reference, where do you think Levis ranks in amount of hits taken by a quarterback in the NFL, regardless of how many games played?
Amount of times hit?
Yeah, QB hits taken.
So we're talking about a much larger sample size for players other than Levis.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about, Sam Howell, Pat Mahomes,
okay.
Bryce. Every quarterback in the NFL is on this list. Where does Levis rank after starting 3 games?
On hits?
Yes.
He's been hit 33 times?
25 times.
25 times. I bet he's in the top 15.
He's 13th. He's been hit the 13th most times in the NFL.
He's only started 3 games.
3 games. There are guys on this list. Kirk Cousins tops the list, and he's out for the season. But Joshua Dobbs is on this list. He's been hit the second most times. He's played 10 games. Sam Howell's played 10 games. Josh Allen has played 10 games. These are all quarterbacks that are level or ahead of Will Levis in QB hits.
Where are those stats courtesy of?
Pro Football Reference. Dak Prescott has been hit 24 times. He's played every game this season.
And the Cowboys aren't even they're a solid offensive line group, but they're not great by any stretch of imagination. They have 2 great players on that offensive line. And maybe that's all you need. To put together a competent unit they have two great players, both of them closer to the end of their careers than the beginning, but they're still finding ways. It's why you don't let good offensive linemen go because, I mean, if they can hold up health-wise, that's the way that you stave off some of this talent drop-off. You can't have the whole thing go off a cliff and then over the course of 4 years, or I guess 3 years, really, Skoronski being the starting point of what looks to be an improvement. We'll see how things play out for Peter as a rookie moving forward. He's only 22 years old. Fair to expect that he's going to improve, but he also needs help. Like, this can be detrimental to him, too. Radens, it sounds like it's going to be the left tackle. And
this week.
Yeah, this week.
Dillard did not practice yesterday.
Yeah. God, if they put Andre Dillard back out there. But like Radens was it was really bad with Dylan Radens. Really, really bad.
I do think he deserves a chance to go through a week of practice at that spot and go into a game.
Sure. With
that being the game plan. Dylan Radens at left tackle, not thrown into the fire when starter gets out concussed.
That's what you're leaning on right now. You're leaning on, all right, where can they possibly find ways to win within the margins? And if, a couple extra days of practice at left tackle as opposed to a week of work preparing at right guard the way that Dylan Radens had and then was asked to switch less than 20 plays into the game, if that helps him even slightly, can that give Will Levis an opportunity to get 2 or 3 more passes completed than what was he under pressure? I had the stats. I'll have to look them up again on Pro Football Focus. But the drastic difference between the number of passes that Will Levis was able to complete while kept clean versus under pressure.
I think he was pressured on, what did you say, 44% of his dropbacks?
Let me find this specifically because I want to give the most accurate numbers. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it here in real time, but yeah, it was bad. He was like 3 of 15 or something like that when pressured for 40 yards and an interception. I'm pretty sure that. I know it was 3 completions. I know it was 3 completions under pressure. I'll find the exact stats for you. While I look them up, we'll take a phone call. Timothy in Nashville is next. Go ahead, Timothy.
Hey, man. So this O-line is frustrating me like heck. How bad would it be to bring in somebody like Bruce Matthews or Hopkins or even like Joe Thomas from Cleveland? I mean, I trust the coaches, but I just feel like something is going wrong with the players themselves. I mean, I know the talent is not there, but I mean, just what can we do to help the O-line? Or, I mean, what do you think?
Well, Timothy, they already are is the answer to your question. And I hate to do like this hopelessness type of stuff, but there is not a team that is using running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers more to help their tackles in pass pro than this one.
Buddy, we're taking calls talking about bringing Joe Thomas out of retirement. We're at the hopelessness stage.
I thought he was kidding.
I don't know.
I thought he was kidding.
What do you know?
Timothy's still on the line. Were you joking?
No, sir. I'm not saying bring in Joe Thomas as a player.
Okay.
I'm saying
to help to like coach them
as a consultant or something like that.
Okay. The fact that your head went there is hilarious.
Where I went. Do you know anything about Calvin Throckmorton? What a name. It's a powerful name.
It's a powerful name.
Titans signed him off waivers from the Panthers.
Yeah, he's a guard. They signed a guard.
27 years old, undrafted 2020 out of Oregon, was with
Saints
the Saints
and
Panthers, and now Titans.
Panthers also one of the worst offensive line groups in football, by the way. So that's the kind of players that they're signing from teams off the practice squad.
He started games for the Saints at right guard
in
his time there.
Yeah. He has starts. He has starts all over the place as a player, as an offensive lineman out of Oregon in college. But in the NFL, he has been a guard. So if you're talking about tackle help and things like that, Throckmorton, with a great name, it's a guard's name. Throckmorton is a guard. Jalen Duncan, he's going to get some work there in practice this week, or has been getting some work there in practice this week. Like I said, their biggest concern with him is that he's not up to speed sufficiently to be able to execute the plays that they need him to execute. 3 snaps in Pittsburgh, if you watch him, he's just kind of wandering around looking for somebody to block. And And it's a concern. Now, does that mean that he can't improve, that those practice reps won't help him? You would hope so, but I also think it is a red flag to say that 11 weeks into an NFL season that you're still worried about the rookie left tackle that may or may not be as familiar as you need him to be with the playbook. More of your phone calls coming up next, 615-737-1045. Don't forget, Titans Corner, Roger McCreary is going to be on the show with us in the noon hour. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back. Roger McCreary going to join us in the noon hour. Looking forward to it. Woodyard just texted me and said his flight got delayed, so we'll see if the lumberjack wanders his way in here or not today. What happened? What are you looking at me like that for? You can't hear me? It's a you problem. I can hear me fine. You've got me in the wrong program thing. Lucas is looking back there panicked because he's done something.
It was my headphones. My headphones were being weird. Like I was getting the bumper music and your mouth was just moving. I was like, well, this is nice.
You don't have to be a jerk. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. You can. Houston is in Portland up next.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Great.
Good. Thank y'all for taking my phone call. I'm just going to jump straight to the chase. Titans offensive line is bad. We all know that's not something we can – it's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that bothers me about all this, though, is the Tennessee Titans are the most injury-ridden team in the NFL. Have been for the past couple of years. I don't blame that on the players. Stuff happens. I get that. And anybody who's played sports, organized sports, gets injuries happen. But here's what I will say. If I'm Amy Adams Strunk, I tell you what I'm looking at. I'm looking at my training staff and looking at, okay, why are my guys injured all the time and taking these hits that aren't terrible hits in the NFL and still getting injured? And honestly, it's the training staff, I would have to say, because obviously there's something going on that we're not seeing, and it results in our players getting injured so much.
All right, Houston, hang with me because I feel like I field one of these phone calls once a week. So we're gonna go through a quick exercise real quick with you. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to take a look at the Titans injury report, and you're going to tell me if the training staff is to blame for Treylon Burks' concussion. Yes or no?
No, sir. Concussions are nothing that the training staff can handle.
So Andre Dillard also with a concussion, not an injury to blame on the training staff. Daniel Brunskill's ankle injury on the field in Pittsburgh, is that a training staff issue?
No, sir. I'm not blaming. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
I'm not going to blame things that happen that are outside of their control on them. I don't believe that's their fault. Stuff happens.
Okay.
We all understand that. But it seems like other than the concussions and stuff that happens that just happens, we are still the most injury-ridden team in the NFL. Let's just take concussions out of the picture here. If you look at I'll follow Jim White Sports on Instagram, and he posts every week the Titans injury report. I don't know if y'all follow that or not.
Sure. I'm on the same email.
Okay, cool. Every week we're are like when he compares the two teams are 2-1 at least. I mean, it seems like for every one player they have on the injury report, we have two.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the call. Listen, I'm not disputing that they don't get hurt all the time. I'm just saying, like, if you actually look at these injury reports and you go through the injuries and you remember the context for the injuries that happen, like, there's not one on here that I'm looking at and saying, that's questionable.
Are we on the same pace this year?
Ooh, that's a good question.
For the last couple years?
Nobody's tracking it as closely, at least.
Yeah, it feels like we're not talking about it as much this year. Last week, for me, felt like the first time that I thought, my goodness, that's a huge injury. There's a huge injury report.
And it was coming out of a Thursday night game and off a mini bye, and a bunch of dudes who needed rest got it. And most of these players, like, it's worth noting, like Houston and anybody who sees these injury reports, more than half of the players listed on this injury report were full participants yesterday. Like, that's worth noting. There's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Of the 11 who are on the injury report, 6 were full participants. So while your injury report, yes, physically does look longer, it's you need to look at the designations first and foremost. And, the only reason that I do that exercise with Houston and whomever calls in about the training staff every week is because there's not one on here. There's not one on here that raises a red flag to me.
Well, what raises red flags to you?
Recurring soft tissue injuries.
Top tier on the F&M Bank chat makes the point. Most of the Titans' injuries this season are football injuries. The last 2 seasons, it was a ton of soft tissue injuries. has any player been plagued by soft tissue this year over and over?
Over?
Do you have the injury report in front of you?
I do.
Are there any right now? Just hamstring?
So Anthony Kendall is listed on here as having a hamstring injury and was a limited participant.
A special teamer.
Mm-hmm. Fulton had a hamstring injury at the start of the year. He has historically had them. He has not had a recurrence, it's worth noting.
Right.
I say all that to say is it's pretty reckless to point fingers that way when you are acknowledging, one, you have no idea what's going on inside that building, and two, when the evidence that you're citing, while there is historical data to say, yes, the Titans are one of the most injured teams in football, that they had all these soft tissue injuries last year and don't this year. Am I just saying that's luck and that's the way that the bodies have worked out this year? I'm more comfortable attributing something to bad injury luck than I am in ignorance pointing fingers at the training staff. Not that I'm qualified to evaluate how these guys are strength trained and conditioned anyway, but it is, again, it's like saying, well, what are we going to do at wide receiver this week? Why not move Malik Willis there or something like that? It's grasping at straws when you've just run out of feasible answers, right? You're desperate for something to change on your football team. And that the most realistic answer is not satisfying, I completely understand that, because why wouldn't you be frustrated with how often players on this particular roster have been hurt? But I really do think that in this sport, and realistically, if you looked around in the NFL, you know who's also always injured and is again this year? Do you want to guess another franchise, the franchise that I'm talking about?
The Saints?
The Ravens.
Yeah, Ravens.
The Ravens are banged up all over the place. The Browns have critical injuries at a lot of different positions, not just Watson, Chubb, Conklin, guys who matter to their football teams. This is it. You're hyper-focused on the team that you root for and the team that you pay attention to every week. When in reality, this is, in 2020, they broke the record, or 2021, they broke the record. They did, and they damn near repeated it last year. Every time the injury report comes out, somebody's going to make a joke about it looking like a CVS receipt. And that's fine. You're entitled to do so. But, that really is just football. Not this. I don't know that they have the best. I have heard that they don't have the best strength and conditioning staff in the world, and that their recovery methods are not the best in the world from players who have left here and gone to other places. That is not inconsequential. But that's not like something that raises a red flag to me about the strength and conditioning staff. That to me is about a level of investment that is or is not made depending on which franchise that you're talking about in those specific things. Famously, the Eagles, ever since Chip Kelly, they have been on the forefront of player recovery, rehabilitation, and performance. They have been one of the best teams. They invest heavily in that part of their facility, of their organization. Does every team invest to that same level? Probably not. 615-737-1045 is the number. The noon hour is coming up next.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The first Titans injury report of the week came out on Wednesday. Both Treylon Burks and Andre Dillard not practicing, still in concussion protocol. Meanwhile, Daniel Brunskill, Anthony Kendall, and Sean Murphy Bunting were limited. The Titans made a transaction on Wednesday claiming offensive lineman Calvin Throckmorton off of waivers from the Panthers and also placing linebacker Chance Campbell on injured reserve as the Titans at 3-6 prepare to head to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars, the AFC South leaders. Titans still looking for their first road win of the year. Tonight, Week 11 in the NFL starts with a big AFC North showdown. The Bengals visit the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. Kickoff at 7:15. You can hear the Westwood One call right here on The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour. Going to have a lot of fun. Roger McCreary going to join us here in just about 15 minutes from now. Talk to the Titans corner about what this team can do to get a win in Jacksonville. Your phone calls are welcome as well. We've got you till 1 o'clock. Of course, if you don't get in with us, Blaine and Mickey, 3HL after that. 615-737-1045 is the number. The FNM Bank chat, always rambling on about something. If you want to do so as well, you can join that very, very strange community on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. But we do love you there, too. So, as we get ready to see what happens in Jacksonville with an AFC South opponent, only the second AFC South game that the Titans have played to date, there is an article out on ESPN.com today that details, courtesy of Bill Barnwell, the 2024 NFL Draft top pick scenarios. Lucas, we have now officially entered draft talk season. Are you excited?
No, but I am. I'm starting to resign myself to it.
Okay, well, I'll take you in your resignation, rightly or wrongly, because we're doing draft talk, because the team is 3-6. So Bill Barnwell has gone through and detailed the case for 8 teams, their percentage chance as we sit here heading into Week 11 of securing the top overall pick. Lucas, give us the details on what he has outlined for the Titans specifically so we can go through how realistic this scenario is or not.
Well, they joined the Bears, Cardinals, Commanders, Falcons, Giants, Packers, and Patriots in this discussion. So you've already read it. You already know where the Titans kind of rank in this for Bill Barnwell. Okay, so the Titans are 6 in the percentage chance of landing the number 1 overall pick at just a 0.5% chance. For reference, the Bears are number 1, interestingly enough, with over a 40% chance. The Panthers are number 2. So the first thing, they look at must-lose games on the schedule. And they list out the Panthers game, the Colts game, and the Texans game.
For the Titans.
For the Titans. Says beating the Panthers or Colts would all but take the Titans out of the race for number 1. They would need to lose out and get help to have a realistic shot of landing the top selection. They have a 1.7% chance of landing the number 2 overall spot, so that appears to be a more plausible path for them. Are they tanking is the next question. He says maybe. General manager Rand Carthon traded away veteran safety Kevin Byard at the trade deadline. The team committed to Levis as its full-time starter after exactly 1 good performance. He says Tennessee is basically out of the playoff picture at this point. I'm not sure Tannehill would solve its problems, but it certainly seems like the team is thinking more about 2024 than 2023.
I think the Levis move is the opposite. I think if they were just going to let this thing bleed out, they'd keep trotting out what they were doing.
And then he goes on to say,
but I understand why he thinks that way,
that if the Titans did finish with the top 2 pick, Bill Barnwell says, I can't imagine they would let those sunk costs, meaning the draft picks of Levis and Willis, Can't imagine they would let those sunk costs get in the way of taking a top signal caller. The Panthers didn't let Jimmy Clausen get in the way of Cam Newton, and the Browns moved Deshaun Kaiser out of the way for Baker Mayfield.
What a sentence.
So Bill Barnwell is talking Titans taking a quarterback at 1 or 2 for the 3rd straight year.
Oh, I mean, well, you don't think they have to think about it? Lucas.
If they end up in that spot, you have to think about it.
You have to think about it.
Absolutely. With this quarterback class,
you have to.
You're not doing your job if you're not. Right?
No, for sure. Like you have to vet them. I mean, you're going to vet them. You are going to vet them if for no other reason to decide whether or not it makes more sense for you to move the pick and let somebody else take one of the top quarterbacks and see, by the way, who else is taking these top quarterbacks and who you're willing to deal this pick to. You have to at least consider taking a quarterback.
A lot would have to happen for the Titans to have the number 1 pick. Like, things would have to get much worse.
No, and like, as bad as you feel right now, it can always get worse.
Always.
I warned you with Dennis Daly, it can get worse. It has, okay? So let's just bear that in mind. As stinky as this is, it can get worse.
But just sobering after the midway point of the season to be included in an article with teams in the running for the number 1 pick.
I mean, what is... They're not better than any of these teams.
We'll find out. Panthers coming to town in a couple weeks.
Panthers are really bad.
Really bad.
But, you know, who's not in this discussion? The Panthers are not in this discussion because the Bears have the Panthers pick.
That's right.
The reason that the Bears have such a strong percentage chance of nailing that number 1 overall pick is because they have the Panthers pick.
We've talked about it, and I keep forgetting it. It's so crazy that the 1-win Carolina Panthers aren't going to have a first-round pick. And the Bears are a 3-win team. The Bears are looking at potentially having 2 picks inside the top 5.
Yeah. So let's start there. Quarterbacks should not be off if they do in fact end up in this kind of range where we're talking about, let's just say, a top 3 pick. You absolutely have to think about taking a quarterback. And I understand why people would be screaming at their radios right now. Don't care. You have to consider it as an option. Will Levis could show you a lot of things that make you move off that position. And still, with the top 3 pick, you absolutely have to factor quarterback into that equation. Now, what is more likely there is an offensive tackle. There are offensive tackles, and this is going to make you sick to think about, but if they don't go offensive tackle on day 1, they can probably find there's a lot of right tackles. A lot of right tackles in this draft class. I know because I've already had to start looking at the draft class for the right tackles. But the 2 guys that are at the top of the list, the dude whose name I'm going to have to learn to pronounce from Penn State, and Joe Alt from Notre Dame. You're probably not, those 2 are not getting out of the top. It's complicated this year with the quarterbacks because Mac talks about this all the time, right? There's the draft and then there's the quarterback draft. And the draft is second to the quarterback draft because, of course, that has the ripple effect on all this stuff, whether that's trades, whether that's outright personnel decisions, or otherwise. The quarterbacks are going to influence a lot about this. But I think those 2 top tackles are gone before, I mean, let's say they pick 10th. I bet they're both gone before 10. Because who else are we talking about besides Marvin Harrison as being in that kind of category? Brock Bowers is going to be in that discussion as a top 10 pick. There's not that many tight ends that are worthy of that discussion, but Bowers is definitely one. I don't know if he's going to go 4th overall the way that Pitts did, but for the purposes of this conversation. So who are the consensus top 10 players in college football right now?
Williams, Drake May, Brock Bowers,
Marvin Harrison Jr.
Are absolutely consensus.
Alton, the Penn State guy. You're at 6.
Then you're getting into a
There's
conversation.
not an edge rusher in the top 10. There's not a defensive tackle in the top 10. Dallas Turner.
Alabama.
So maybe there's another quarterback that goes in the top 10 there, depending on which team has the need. But, think about that. There's going to be teams that are picking in the top 10 that have tackle needs, and there's only 2 tackles to go around really in that range. So you have to be realistic about what your options are. This is why this whole tanking thing is nonsense. Anyway, Roger McCreary will join us coming up next. We'll talk about how the Titans can try and win a football game in Jacksonville, as well as what the young corner thinks about the state of the secondary at this point. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
Welcome back here on 104.5 The Zone. Roger McCreary going to join us here in just a little bit. Titans back on the practice field today. Always good information about where the team is or what the team or individual players could accomplish this week in the supplemental notes, of which Titans PR has just sent us a couple of notes to pay attention to. DeAndre Hopkins, he currently leads the Titans this season, 38 catches, 591 receiving yards. So that means his career totals now include 891 receptions, 11,889 receiving yards, and 74 touchdowns in 11 seasons. He's on the verge of entering some territory for a player in his first 11 seasons in the NFL. He only needs 9 more catches to get to 900, 111 more receiving yards to hit 12,000, and 1 more touchdown catch for a career total of 75. How the Titans get their passing game going is obviously going to be a big focal point this week, and certainly a trip down to Jacksonville for the second AFC South game of the season for this team is going to be fascinating to watch. Roger McCreary is obviously going to be a part of that one coming up here on Sunday. He joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. What's happening, man?
Hey there. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you on, Roger. I don't think we've had you on yet this season, and we appreciate you making some time for us. What were the last? I know you got in the game obviously and made an impact there against the Bucs. But what were the 2 weeks previous like for you?
The 2 weeks, I feel like it's been just getting back in the groove of everything. I've been off for 2 weeks. It's just try to get back in the groove, especially that playing back in the outside. It's just great just to get back in the back end, especially at corner, and I feel like just got to stay focused this week, and we should all be good.
When's the last time you've missed that much time during a football season? Because I feel like, for somebody who's, as available as you've been, that had to drive you a little bit of crazy.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Just seeing the team play them 2 games, Atlanta and Pittsburgh, it was kind of making me a little frustrated because I never missed a game really in them 2 weeks. That was the first time ever. So it was just more mental to me, just trying to get back and just be strong for the team.
So where were you, I guess, during the games? Were you on the sideline? Were you able to hang out like around the team during these games, or were you watching somewhere?
The first game Atlanta, I was in the box. I was at the game, but I was in the box and just watching, just looking at the guys and everything. I talked to them after the game. And in Pittsburgh, I did not travel. I was in Nashville. So that's how it was when I watched both of them games. So
where are you? You in an apartment somewhere, pacing, yelling at your television, like watching the Steelers game? Like, what does that look like?
Oh, I was definitely locked in that night. I was at home, definitely locked in, calling out the plays, probably looking at it, trying to say, oh, what we was in and stuff like that. I was definitely locked in like I was playing.
Titans corner Roger McCreary here with us on 104.5 The Zone. You mentioned bumping back to the outside, and we'll see if whether SMB is able to go this week or not. I know you guys are looking to get a little healthier throughout the course of the season. Always good to have bodies back in the lineup. But for you, obviously, you've played both a variety of different roles in this defense already. What was that kind of like for you? How important was the week of preparation when you knew you were going to have to play on the outside this past week against the Bucs?
Oh, yeah, that was something like they told me to get another week there. They might have to have me outside because they didn't know they was sure by SMB. So it was just me by getting back in focus to like last year me playing corner because this year I was really playing nickel. So that was I put all my time and focus in on that. And now when they told me I was playing corner, I just had to lock back in and just think back like of corner mindset because it's totally different from a nickel, I would say. So it's just like little stuff like that, just knowing how to play the game and knowing how teams are going to attack me at corner. I just got to get back today and just get back to work.
Okay, see, Roger, I love that you're explaining that to the audience because, a lot of times, and I think this is a product of Madden and everything else, like people think that you can just kind of like bump into one spot and then give it a go. And whether it's you guys in the secondary or what your offensive line is trying to put together with guys missing time and in the middle of games having to switch from one side of the line to the exact opposite, like the degree of difficulty on that, it's not just about, all right, I'm going to be in this spot versus this spot. You're having to think about all manner of different things, and particularly how teams are going to attack you differently.
Yes, most definitely. In the inside nickel, I feel like a lot of stuff happened quickly in that area. You playing against more quick guys. you knowing exactly where your hap is in that situation, and you got to worry about the run fit also as a nickel. But at corner, I feel like it's more like you're really on an island and you're going against bigger receivers. So it really got to have a different mindset, a different physicality, and you just got to have the right technique, I would say, for corner and other than nickel. It's just little stuff like that and little details you really got to pay attention to. But only the people who play would actually know the feeling.
Roger McCreary hanging out here with us. Titans get ready to get on the practice field. Lucas, you got the call of the interception back there. Let's play it for Roger, and then he can walk us through the play of him getting the Titans' third INT of the season.
Mayfield under heat again, going deep downfield, and the pass is intercepted by McCreary. Going to bring it out of the end zone, looking for a block to the 5, to the 10, to the 15, trying to make sure he holds on to it as he gets to the 17. Third interception of the year, and the first of the season for Roger McCreary, the takeaway on the Titans side of the field.
So that's Mike Keith, Titans Radio, of course, on the call. So walk us through it, Roger. What were you seeing? When did you know that you might have an opportunity to make a play on the ball there?
Yeah, most definitely. The defense that we was in is more zone, more like vision on the quarterback. So when my guy had went underneath, I knew I can climb and help out the linebacker on the other side. So basically, I just climbed up to the safety depth, and I knew it was a deep ball. So basically, I was in the right position at the right time, and he threw it right there. So I was happy that at that moment, I feel like you get more opportunity with them plays at playing corner. So that's the only reason why I was happy that I could play corner, because more opportunity like that can come.
Yeah, making plays that can definitely make a difference in the game. Obviously, you guys looking to make more of those and heading down to Jacksonville this weekend. AFC South game, everything that has happened leading up to this game doesn't matter. Now it's just about the opponent that you have in front of you. What are you seeing from the Jags right now when you watch their offense?
Oh, yeah, the offense, can't say the offense is really good. They have improved a lot. This season they're doing great. They have the quarterback. I feel like he stepped up a lot throughout the years and everything. He have guys around him. I feel like he got a lot of weapons around him. So it's just the guys that we have to pay attention to. He have the receivers. He have the tight ends to throw it to. And he have a great running back and everything. So it's just about us just locking in on his key players. But first, we have to affect him, I would say, especially him. We have to affect him by tight coverage, by pressuring him, them the main focus, and also getting turnovers, because them win games. So that's the more that we locked in on them, our biggest keys.
Well, with the Jags, though, like that offense, they deploy guys from so many different spots, at least, to the untrained eye when I'm trying to watch them getting ready to talk about you guys in this game throughout the course of the week. And even ETN, the running back, the way that they can detach him from the formation and get him involved in the passing game. What kind of burden does that put you guys or put on you guys as you're making your preparations for this particular offense?
Yeah, we see how they can use guys like ETN to get out on receiver and catch yards. We see they're a team that's good with catch yards after catch. So we pay attention to stuff like that, and like they're really know ways how to get the balls to the guys quick. So it's just by knowing the personnel and exactly who they got on the field to know how we can match these people. And I feel like the play and the keys that we have this week, I feel like they'll be great, because we know like exactly what they want to do and exactly how they get these isolations and everything. So that's really the main focus, just knowing the personnel and knowing how to put the matchups with them.
Hey, I know it's a cupcake week for Auburn this week with New Mexico State. I know you're not going to downplay any opponent as a player, but like, what do you think about your Tigers right now? They're having a better season than I think a lot of us would have expected.
Yeah, most definitely. The Tigers, I feel like he's free. He's changing the program around. I'm really proud of how it's going. I feel like it's just going to get better in the future. Going against New Mexico this week, I feel like it's going to be great, especially at home. So it's going to be great. And next week, they're going for the Iron Bowl. So this is just a great game for them to get in their grooves and they're finally have fun. Because next week, Iron Bowl, that's a big deal for the down south. So I feel like that's going to be great for them.
Well, that's an Iron Bowl at Jordan-Hare, right? Auburn's hosting the Iron Bowl. That has the opportunity to get pretty weird. You've been a part of some of those games.
Yes, sir, always. Anything can happen in Jordan-Hare, especially that fans and everything. I'm telling you, it's the best feeling ever. So I'm really confident that we're going to take the win for sure, especially in Jordan-Hare.
You got any locker room bets to back that up? You've been pushing Derek on that?
No, me and Derek gonna talk the week of. We focus on this week. Next week when that comes, that's when we gonna talk.
Roger McCreary, kind enough to give us some time here on 104.5 The Zone. Buddy, I appreciate you stopping by, and continued health and success this season.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
That's Roger McCreary, Titans corner, with us on 104.5 The Zone. Whether he's outside or the nickel this week remains to be seen. Sean Murphy Bunting getting back in the mix at practice in a limited capacity, dealing with that thumb procedure that he had after experiencing the injury. Well, he got injured in Atlanta and then tried to gut it out, I think, in Pittsburgh and wasn't able to give it a go much beyond, I think he was out after the first defensive series, if I remember correctly. But McCreary is, I mean, we've talked about this with where the draft classes have fallen short. Roger McCreary is the best thing that they have to stand on in the last 3 John Robinson drafts. Yes? And he's only in his second season.
I don't know that it's particularly close.
So why is there such a gap between him and Fulton for you? Because I think that discredits Christian Fulton.
Yeah, that's fair.
A little bit. Now, I'm not denying that Fulton's availability stuff is real and should be counted there. But I do think that Christian Fulton has played some good football for the Titans.
Those are the two, as far as J-Rob.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking for the other ones. It's just those two.
Those are the two that have made any sort of consistent impact when healthy. And McCreary hasn't. That was his first real injury stint, right? Was those 2 games missed. But you're right. Fulton, we haven't talked about Fulton. We have hardly said a word about Christian Fulton since the discourse that followed the Colts game. And that is a credit to Christian Fulton.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best performance. Listen, as a secondary, it wasn't as a defense. The explosive play stuff, man. We've talked about the defense because, Lucas, you brought up earlier in the week they're top 10 in scoring?
Right, allowing 20 points per game. There's contenders in the NFL that are doing much worse as far as scoring defense.
And again, all things are amplified when you yourselves as an offense cannot score, and that's the nature of the Titans situation right now. The defense, while they are giving up those explosive plays, they are still managing in the red zone, and I know that everybody is playing better red zone defense right now and that scoring is down across the league, but still, that is not insignificant for where the criticisms seem to be flying around right now.
I mean, the Detroit Lions, who have a worse scoring defense than the Titans, are at this point unquestionably a contender out of the NFC, right? Got into a shootout in L.A. against the Chargers. Oh, what was the final of that game? It ended up being a
27-24, I think.
No, it was higher scoring than that.
Wait, I'm sorry. You're talking about the Chargers.
Lions-Chargers.
Oh, Lions-Chargers. No, I'm sorry. I thought you said Titans.
No, Lions-Chargers this past weekend. The Lions go to SoFi Stadium. They walk away winning 41-38.
Oof.
Lions have shown they can win 20-6, right? 21-20.
And they can also get blown out the way the Ravens got them.
Yeah, and they can win when games are getting into the upper 30s. Like, think about this Titans team allowing 39 points in a game.
Dead in the water.
Lions are doing that with former Titans players. Khalif Raymond had a big day. Josh Reynolds is having a nice season.
Yeah, the Reynolds thing. That I think that ended so abruptly and that he's having such success in Detroit. I think that's a sneaky one that bothers Titans fans.
Yeah.
Because they could have absolutely used. I mean, Khalif Raymond, he got paid as a returner and is also a receiver for them and is having a good season. Like, I don't want to take anything away from Khalif, but like Khalif Raymond was he a Pro Bowl returner last year?
Was he?
He's been one of the better returners in football. That contract is more for his special teams ability.
But
than
he's popping up and making plays in the passing game.
Can we play the Cosell audio again? Just about somebody making plays, because it's an evaluation of Will Levis, but I think it encapsulates really, really well in about 2 minutes how thin the margin for error is for them, and that it's not just about the offensive line. It's that when there are plays there to be made, they are also missing those opportunities. This was Greg Cosell yesterday on the podcast.
I think the first offensive coach I ever got the opportunity to talk to years and years and years ago, probably when I was a young man, Buck, was, he told me that you have no pass game if you can't protect.
Right.
It's a very simple but true point. And we saw what happened this past week with Levis. Boy, did he get hit a lot.
Yeah.
And you know what? it's funny with each game. Obviously, the statistics have been less, but I would say with each game, sort of my admiration for him has gone up as a potential quality NFL quarterback. Because look, that first game when he threw the 4 touchdowns, what did we say after that first game? I said that's not going to happen every week, so don't expect that. And then the second game where he really hung in there and stood in there and made some throws, and then this week where there were just too many plays where he had no chance.
Right. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast right now. And basically, Greg, and you and I talked about this before we started recording, basically this is what we're going to do for the rest of the season, depending on how competitive the Titans end up, is looking at Will Levis and how he manages these situations week in and week out, because that's now what their season basically becomes.
And the second point, and of course that was the case this week, is a total inability to run the football. And if they can't do that at all, then it's really, really hard. I mean, again, no one's expecting Derrick Henry to go 25 for 150 every week. We're past that point. That's not going to happen. But what were the final numbers? I know at one point he was 11 for 25. Was that final?
Yeah, he ended up averaging 2.3 yards per carry.
Yeah, I mean, then it's just really too hard. And what happens is then you need players, and I hate to be cliched, but it is true. Then you need players to make plays. Like, for instance, the first play of the third quarter, when they come out with a shot play and he throws to Westbrook-Ikhine, which was a beautiful ball. He's got to catch that ball. I mean, I'm not saying it's a routine, easy catch. Okay, I don't want people to think, oh, what are you saying? But he's got to lay out and catch that ball. I mean, that in those kinds of games with the situation they're in, those plays have to be made.
Margin for error is what we're talking about.
And on that note, Jags are top 5 in rushing defense this season. They're allowing 86 yards per game.
I fully anticipate it's because, like Trayvon Walker, there's been a lot of talk about him being disappointing as a number 1 overall pick, and he is. He's a disappointment as a number 1 overall pick, especially when Aiden Hutchinson went 2, and that was definitely the better play. Imagine the Jags defense having him. But
is Hutchinson having a big year? I haven't really looked at his numbers.
Not necessarily having a big year, but he is the better overall player between the two. Now,
Hutchinson has 4.5 sacks this year.
What Walker is good at is he is still a massive body. He is over 270 pounds, and they are stout against the run. They got a bunch of giant dudes up there that will just stonewall you. And the biggest reason that the Jags are 6-3 is not because Trevor Lawrence and this offense have turned into a top 10 unit the way that many of us thought that they might, because their offensive line is still not very good, worth noting. But it's because the defense is keeping them in more of these games. And the defense, when you can make teams more one-dimensional, and the Jags have done so, stopping the run, and they've got a good enough unit against the pass, they have kind of it's helped them turn a corner into a different level of competitiveness than I think we've seen from Trevor Lawrence Jags teams in the last 2 years.
And you're catching them on a week where they just got embarrassed at home.
Dummied.
They got pantsed.
34-3 at home. Brock, it turns out all the Niners need is just to be a little healthy. Just have a little time off. Everybody take a week, take a beat. We'll come back. We'll drum one of the best teams in the sport.
The Niners rushed for 144 yards in that game, and it opened up a lot of things for Brock Purdy, who was crazy efficient.
I am anticipating a game where the Titans again struggle to run the football. And I put this in the grid for Monday, but I thought it was a bit premature to talk about it. I wonder if Tajay, and I'm going to say this and get dragged, but I wonder if Tajay Spears, for the current problems that the Titans offense has, isn't a better primary option. Am I being blasphemous if I say that?
What's your case?
I mean, the case is that they don't use Derrick Henry in the way that Derrick Henry is accustomed to being used. Tajay Spears is a much smaller target. He's easier to lose behind some of these bodies. He's one of the shiftiest players in the NFL. Derrick is not right now. I'm not saying that you can't still split the work. I don't know if how Derrick is being used lends itself to primarily a Derrick Henry based offense.
You're no longer in a place where it can just be, hey, run game's not really breaking through early, but keep handing it to him. Keep handing it to him. 2.2
yards. You can't exist that way. And it's not like, I'm not saying, people are going to hear that and say, well, Derrick Henry's still got plenty. I'm not arguing against Derrick Henry having plenty left to work. I'm arguing that they've betrayed him with the worst offensive line of his career in front of him and that he can't get anything done.
How many times do you think he's gone over 20 carries in a game this season?
3. Is it all 3 wins?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, all three home games.
But again, that is like Derrick Henry when they have a lead and can close out games. That's the Derrick Henry time.
Yeah.
To call Derrick Henry a role player right now is not an inaccurate assessment. All of these guys are role players to extent. It's like saying a system quarterback is a bad thing. It's not. All quarterbacks are asked to play within a system.
I mean, Titans fans can get contradictory on it, too, because, of course, the run game's not working. Henry got 11 carries. He's never been that type of player. And then when you keep handing it to Derrick Henry, and if you keep running into a brick wall, people are tearing their hair out at predictability.
I don't know that they would do it, right? And I don't know that that's the right thing, but like I'm looking at how they can keep from being so often or so regularly put behind the sticks with these negative runs, because he's losing yardage or not gaining yardage as often as he's gaining yardage this past Sunday.
They're going away from the run game when it's not there earlier than usual, right?
Yeah, they just don't have the group to do it. Like Derrick, how many games has Derrick been like legitimately special this year?
The 3 wins? I mean, the Bengals game, I think he was special. That touchdown run, that's the most vintage Derrick Henry we've seen all year.
Agreed.
29-yard touchdown.
Chargers, he was doing all kinds of stuff. And it was a great Derrick Henry game. And all-around Derrick Henry game.
And Falcons game, I mean, 4.6 yards per carry.
Because they're airing it out. He's got room to work. They then fear the threat of a Titans deep ball. And, oh, my God, there's only 7 players in the box instead of 8.
And then we saw the flashes in the Ravens game on the long 63-yard run, had a long screen pass in that game.
Yeah. So he doesn't have enough help to be special often enough, if that makes sense. It cannot be, hey, Derrick, go out there and make a play. He can't get to his second step before he's getting hit. And that's really the only reason that I would even pose the thought of there being a benefit to more Tajay Spears than Derrick Henry right now. Like I said, I think he's still an asset. I just don't think they have enough pieces to help him. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. We would be happy to have you before we wrap things up, do some polls, and send you over to Blaine and Mickey. So interesting email here that the Titans just sent around, a media advisory for tomorrow. All it says, how about this for a tease? Titans to make major announcement regarding new stadium. Apparently there will be a press conference at Nissan Stadium in the East Club. Does not say who will be speaking. A lot of mystery surrounding said major announcement regarding the stadium. The announcement will begin with a short program followed by interview opportunities with the speakers. Again, the speakers are not specified, nor is what the announcement is about. But it will be, or at least the ceremonies or the program, whatever the opening program will be as the radio show starts. So as information becomes available, obviously we'll keep you updated with whatever they announce about the stadium tomorrow. We got a good football game tonight, bud. Bengals at Ravens, AFC North, fourth place team against a first place team, even though one team is 5-4 and the other 7-3. T. Higgins has already been ruled out. There's a bunch of Ravens who are going to miss this game as well, but I'm fascinated to see how this goes because they can't outright eliminate the Bengals tonight, but they can really, really do some damage to Joe Burrow and this Bengals team in trying to make the postseason because there's a lot of wild card spots that are taken up by one specific division.
You think Al Michaels had a pep in his step this morning?
I think Al Michaels is bored with the whole thing, no matter who they trot out there at this point. Yeah. The fact that Jason Kelce was just sitting in there talking to them as plays were going on last week, I have never had a network tell me that they care less about the actual football game and still try and get me to watch the football game. It's I honestly, I would be disappointed if Al Michaels was actually into an Amazon game at this point. I prefer disinterested, bored Al Michaels on my Thursday Night Football now.
They treated that Panthers-Bears game like it was
preseason
MLB game in July.
Yeah.
It was
spring training game.
Yes. That's what it felt like. The spring training vibes with Tyson Bagent at quarterback.
Unbelievable. Anyway, Ravens and Bengals in Baltimore tonight should be fun.
Good game. Good game. Who won the first matchup in that game?
Good question.
Because it is the second time, right, that they've played.
Oh, well, we should probably know this if we're going to talk about this. The Ravens and the Bengals. Let me look at the schedule. Yes, week 2. The Ravens won 27-24 at Cincinnati against a lame duck Joe Burrow.
Yes, that was, I guess, right before the Bengals came here.
Mm-hmm. I'm fascinated to see how this goes because Lamar, the pick six at the end of that game, where they had the 2-touchdown lead basically for the entirety of the game against Cleveland and just kind of gave it away.
Yeah.
The stats in here are pretty interesting from the NFL. This game could be decided by halftime. No team has suffocated opponents early more than the Baltimore Ravens. They've only allowed a single first-quarter touchdown and led by a combined 152-54 at the half through 10 games. But, as we've said, late meltdowns are very well documented with Baltimore, or just well documented by Robert Walsh, who continues to go through it every time he sees his favorite team meltdown this way. They are 0-4. Think about this. They are 0-4 when trailing at the half and 5-0 when tied or leading.
Not a lot of sleep for Robert Walsh tonight.
That's crazy. All right, let's do some polls, please.
I don't know who you are, but I know what it's time for. A poll update on the Buck Rising Show. Here's a young man with a very particular set of skills. With the final numbers, here's Buck Rising Show correspondent and producer, Lucas Panzica.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. What do you most want to see from Will Levis in his 4th NFL start? Morris says keep his head on a swivel, don't take unnecessary hits. Puka says survive. Kenneth says use his feet more to extend drives. Mahogany also says use his legs. Karen says no turnovers. Ricky wants to see protection.
I just don't know. Like, when people say use his legs, what do they want him to do? Because, like, when you see quarterbacks rush, It's because the defense is sinking back, expecting the pass, and creating those lanes for the quarterback to run through the front of the pocket. There's too many defenders in the box against the Titans, and nobody's sinking back against this pass game. Like, you're just asking him to run forward for the sake of running.
I mean, we've talked about the idea of more rollouts, bootlegs, just give him an option to throw on the run, anything. And people are scrambling. People are grasping at straws right now to figure something out for this offense. Levis is an athletic guy. He can move. Run away from the pressure. That's how people think about it.
Run. But, like, even with the rollouts, you can't turn your back to the defense with this offensive line.
How realistic is the Vols' opportunity to knock off Georgia on Saturday? 46% say miracles happen. 3% say it's very realistic. 51% just say LOL.
I mean, there's always a chance. I'm more inclined to lean LOL than I am, the other way. But yes, I would say by nature of them physically being in the game against Georgia, there is an opportunity for Tennessee to win.
They will field a team, yes, on Saturday. Who is the best team in the NFC right now? 49% believe it's the Eagles. 27% say the Niners. 11% say the Lions.
I mean, if both teams are healthy, I'm inclined to say Niners, even though the Eagles have a better record. The difference being with the Eagles and the Niners is that, like, when the Eagles get into these ruts, they're able to turn it on and just be more talented than another team.
Who should be the Heisman frontrunner right now? 43% say Penix. 42% say Jaden Daniels. Only 15% say Bo Nix, who is the favorite at the moment, according to FanDuel Sportsbook.
Why do you think they're doing that to Bo Nix?
Big performance against USC. I don't know. It's a good question. Again, this will sort itself out in some way after conference championship weekend when those two face off. It'll be interesting. Are the Titans closer to getting back into the playoff race, or are they closer to the number one overall pick?
What a question.
80% say they're closer to the number one pick than they are the playoffs.
That is accurate in its assessment.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Blaine and Mickey going to keep you entertained. You're not quite done with me yet. I'm on with them in just about 25 minutes from now, so we'll chop it up with the boys. If you're hanging out, why wouldn't you? You can call them. You can call 3HL after that. I know they're hanging out at B-Dubs today, 3HL is. So if you are out and about and want to go hang out with Slay, Dawn, and Brent for the Wash Away Victory Toast, God knows there's a lot to wash away at this point in the season. They are at the Buffalo Wild Wings in Murfreesboro this afternoon, so go check them out if you're around in the borough. Talk to you guys tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. here on 104.5 The Zone.